The Lord said to me, take a large scroll, continuing on. There is a chapter break here, but there's not really a break in thought in the text. The Lord said to me, take a large scroll and write on it with an ordinary pen, Maher-shalal-hash-baz. Now we have a footnote down here saying, quick to the plunder, swift to the spoil. That's what those words mean. So something is coming to take plunder and spoil quickly and swiftly. And I will call in Uriah the priest and Zechariah son of Jeberechiah as reliable witnesses for me. Now we read about this Uriah the priest. I think it's the same guy in the historical account in Chronicles, where he is not a reliable witness for God or faithful, because he's helping Ahaz build this idolatrous idol to suit the king of Assyria when they come into the attack. Excuse me. When the king of Assyria comes and destroys Aram, and King Ahaz tries to appeal him, he's going to build an idol according to specifications, and Uriah the priest is going to be the one doing that. So I don't know, assuming this is the same guy, I don't know if he really is that reliable or faithful to God, but he's going to be there as part of the witness that Isaiah wrote this message on a large scroll with an ordinary pen, Maher-shalal-hash-baz, which means quick to the splendor, swift to the spoil. So the enemy is coming to take plunder and is doing so quickly and swiftly. Then so Isaiah is speaking here, I went to the prophetess, probably the same woman as the virgin in chapter 7, verse 14. And she conceived and gave birth to a son. This is probably the immediate fulfillment of the sign to Ahaz. And the Lord said to me, name him Maher-shalal-hash-baz. So that name he wrote on the scroll, those words he wrote on the scroll sometime a year ago or whenever, we're going to use those words to name this son. And that will be, and because this scroll is signed and viewed by witnesses, they can't deny that this was prophesied ahead of time. Before the boy knows how to say my father or my mother, so when he's very small, still not able to talk, the wealth of Damascus and the plunder of Samaria will be carried off by the king of Assyria. We talked about how that happened around 734 BC when Tiglath-Pileser III attacked those kingdoms, destroyed Damascus and Aram completely, and attacked the northern part of Israel and took off several of the land from the tribes up there. Didn't completely destroy it, though Samaria still existed for a few more years. So this is going to happen before the kid even knows how to say mom or dad, or Abba or whatever their word was for that in their culture. And that's, of course, a year and a half, 2 years old maybe. So this is going to happen pretty soon. This is going to happen within a year or two. The Lord spoke to me again. So therefore we know this prophecy was given around 735 or so BC, because this invasion happened around 734. Because this people, so the Lord spoke to me again, because this people has rejected the gently flowing waters of Shiloah. I don't know exactly what that is, but basically he's saying that they rejected God's offer of peace. If they had accepted God's ways, they would have drunk from the gently flowing waters of Shiloah, whatever that is. Maybe the water that flows from the town to the pool, I'm not sure. But they rejected that. They rejected God's offer for peace and tranquility. And rejoices over Rezin and the son of Remaliah. That probably means rejoices over their defeat, which happened at the hands of Assyria. Therefore, the Lord is about to bring against them the mighty floodwaters of the earth. So, again, Ahaz wanted Assyria's help. We read about that in the historical books. He actually made a treaty with them. He sent for them. It doesn't record that here, but it does record that in the other books. And we read about Assyria being a hired raiser. That's because Ahaz brought them here. He sent for them. And they just did what Ahaz wanted him to do. Okay, he did attack Aram and Damascus and Israel and kind of liberated Ahaz from them. Okay, that did. So in that regards, what Ahaz wanted to have happened happened. So he's rejoicing over that. But he rejected God's offer. God had a way of doing this, and Ahaz rejected that and chose another way. And because of that, the Lord is about to bring against them the mighty floodwaters of the river, the king of Assyria with all his pomp. So Assyria is going to come for Judah too eventually. We brought these people here, and they're going to come for us eventually. It will overflow all its channels, run over all its banks, and sweep on into Judah, swirling over it, passing through it, and reaching up to the neck. So we're not going to completely destroy it. The waters are going to go all the way up to your neck. Oh, its outspread wings will cover the breadth of your land. Oh, Emmanuel. Oh, God save us. Remember how he said, we're going to call this son in chapter 7, verse 14, Emmanuel? We're using that word sarcastically here. Isaiah's son was named Maher-shalal-hash-baz, just like Jesus was named Jesus. But Emmanuel is also a title being used here. In this case, they're using it sarcastically to say that God will be with you, but not in the way that he could have been. He could have had the gently flowing waters of Shalom if you had chosen God's way. You're going to have the mighty rivers of the waters of the river Euphrates that are going to wash you up to your neck. Raise the war cry, you nations, and be shattered. Listen, all you distant lands. Prepare for battle and be shattered. Prepare for battle and be shattered. Devise your strategy, but it will be thwarted. Propose your plan, but it will not stand. For God is with us, Emmanuel. Now he's not using it sarcastically. God is with them. So whatever the Assyrians or other nations try to do to them, it's not going to work. Prepare for battle, let them arm themselves. Let them make plans. So whatever they try to do, in the end, it's not going to work. The Lord spoke to me with his strong hand upon me, warning me not to follow the ways of these people. He said, do not call conspiracy everything these people call conspiracy. So don't buy into conspiracy theories. Do not fear what they fear. Do not dread it. So don't think the same way they think. Don't fall for the same lies and hallucinations that they fall for. The Lord Almighty is the one you are to regard as holy. He is the one you are to fear. He is the one you are to dread. I don't know what conspiracy theories are talking about here. The Assyrians already whispering about turning. The Assyrians will turn on them eventually. Is that already being whispered that's going to happen? I don't know. I don't know what conspiracy. Whatever it is, though, Isaiah is being told not to fear it. Whatever these other people are afraid of, Isaiah is not to be afraid of that. He's to be afraid of God. That's the one you dread. And he will be a sanctuary. So for those who properly put their trust in the Lord, he'll be a sanctuary. But for both houses of Israel, which are not putting their trust in the Lord, he will be a stone that causes men to stumble, and a rock that makes them fall, a stumbling stone, a tripping block. I mean, they just can't keep tripping over and over and over again. And for the people of Jerusalem, he will be a trap and a snare. It's hunting metaphors. He's going to catch them. They're not going to get past. They're not going to escape them. Many of them will stumble. They will fall and be broken. They will be snared and captured. Bind up the testimony and seal up the law among my disciples. I'm assuming here Isaiah is talking about taking the words of his prophecy, like the one he just wrote in the scroll, Maher-shalal-hash-baz, and taking his words, his testimony, and binding them up and preserving them for whatever the student. The prophets had disciples sometimes. We saw that with Elijah and Elisha in those days. They had a school of prophets that followed them around. There was like a school of faithful people who did try to spread the message of and understand the messages of these prophets. That's probably who he's talking about here. I will wait for the Lord, who is hiding his face in the house of Jacob. I will put my trust in him. Here I am, and the children the Lord has given me. We are signs and symbols in Israel from the Lord Almighty, who dwells on Mount Zion. So right there he says we're signs and symbols. So we can be pretty confident that the Isaiah prophecy, the sign Isaiah was talking about to Ahaz in chapter 7, although it has its ultimate fulfillment in the birth of Christ 700 plus years from now, immediately was fulfilled through the birth of Maher-shalal-hash-baz, through whatever woman Isaiah took as his wife, and that was the sign. And in addition to Isaiah himself and his other son, Shear-Jashub. When men tell you to consult mediums and spiritists, who whisper and mutter, should not a people inquire of their God? Why consult the dead on behalf of the living? To the law and to the testimony. If they do not speak according to this word, they have no light at all. They were not allowed to consult mediums and spiritists and talk about all these things. I have a cat back there who is being extremely annoying. I'm going to have to let her out. I probably don't even really need to have I've already read this before. Yeah, there it was. I've already read this before, so I probably didn't really even need to have to look at the note, but I went ahead and did it anyway because I want to make sure I know what I'm talking about. But we've already read about how they're not supposed to consult divination and sorcery. Leviticus 19 has a bunch of do not laws. With specific verses. Okay. Do not practice divination or sorcery. That's about as plain as it gets right there. Deuteronomy 18 has more instructions on that. Deuteronomy 18, starting in verse 9. When you enter the land the Lord your God is giving you, do not learn to imitate the detestable ways of the people there. Let no one be found among you who sacrifices his son or daughter in the fire, who practices divination or sorcery, interprets omens, engages in witchcraft, or casts spells, or who is a medium or spiritist, or who consults the dead. Anyone who does these things is detestable to the Lord. And because of these detestable practices, the Lord your God was driving out the nations before you. So they weren't supposed to do that. He's telling Isaiah, as we were telling them, don't do that. Why even need to? What's the point? To the law and to the testimony. If they do not speak according to this word, they have no light of dawn. Distressed and hungry, they will roam through the land. When they are famished, they will become enraged. And looking upward, will curse their king and their God. Then they will look toward the earth, and see only distress and darkness and fearful gloom, and they will be thrust into utter darkness. So they're not going to turn to the one who actually can give them help or give them counsel. They're going to turn to all these other ridiculous ways of trying to get advice and figure out what they need to be doing. And that is only going to make things worse. And then they're going to get mad. The situation's going to get worse, so they're going to get worse. They're going to get mad. They're going to shake their fists. They're going to shake their fists at the king and at God. They're going to curse the king. They're going to curse God. And they're going to be cast out to utter gloom. And that's just a cycle that happens. But there is a nevertheless at the beginning of the next verse. So there's more to this. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and read Isaiah 9 now too, since this video's not gone on for too long yet. And there is more to this than just that. Nevertheless, there will be no more gloom for those who were in distress. In the past, he humbled the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, but in the future, he will honor Galilee of the Gentiles by way of the sea along the Jordan. Now, that is referring to when the Syrian king came in and captured the northern parts of the land before, a few years before he took the rest of the land. 2 Kings chapter 15. We read this before, but let's just give ourselves a bit of a reminder. 2 Kings chapter 15, verse, let's see here, okay. Yeah, verse, well, let's go ahead and start with verse 17 so we know what king we're talking about here. This is a previous king. The guy we're talking about right now in Isaiah 8 is Pekah, son of Remaliah. He's a couple kings from now. In 2 Kings 15, starting in verse 17, we're in the 39th year of Azariah, king of Judah, and a guy named Menahem, son of Gadi, became king of Israel. Okay, so that's who's king right now. Let's get down to verse. Then Pul, king of Assyria, that's Tiglath-Pileser, invaded the land, and Menahem gave him 1,000 talents of silver, so he bought him off. So then Pekahiah comes along. Hang on, no. Menahem dies, and Pekahiah, his son, becomes king. And then Pekah, the guy who's now king in Isaiah, assassinates him and becomes king in his place. And this is now down in verse 29, excuse me. In the time of Pekah, king of Israel, Tiglath-Pileser came and took Ajalon, blah, 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 blah. He took Gilead and Galilee, including all the land of Naphtali, and deploy people to Assyria. Then Hoshea, son of Elah, conspired against Pekah, attacked him and assassinated him. He was the last king of Israel, and he becomes king, and he buys off the Assyrians and buys what's left of Israel a few more years. So this event we're talking about in Isaiah 9 is when Assyria came and took the northern portions of the land away already. So only a portion of the kingdom is left at this point. So in the past, he humbled the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali. But in the future, he will honor Galilee of the Gentiles by the way of the sea along the Jordan. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of the shadow of death, a light has dawned. You have enlarged the nation and increased their joy. They rejoice before you as people rejoice at the harvest, as men rejoice when dividing the plunder, after winning a battle, of course. Today we could think of it in terms of as cities rejoice when their teams win the championship. For as in the days of Midian's defeat, and I was back in Judges, when Gideon and all the judges, that they came and fought the people who were oppressing Israel. Gideon fought the Midianites. That's in the middle of the book of Judges, like Judges 7 and 8 or somewhere in there. That's what he's talking about. So he could have used any number of other examples. I mean, Israel has always been attacked by enemies. So he just, in this case, he picked this example. For as in the days of Midian's defeat, you have shattered the yoke that burdens them, the bar across their shoulders, the rod of their oppressor. Every warrior's boot used in battle, and every garment rolled in blood, will be, so this is all the Assyrian equipment that's being used, will be destined for burning, will be fuel for the fire. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given. And the government, now this is not Maher-shalal-hash-baz, okay? We're still kind of continuing this theme of this prophecy of this birth of this child is going to be assigned to the people. We fulfilled that partially in the birth of Isaiah's own son, Maher-shalal-hash-baz. But this is not that guy. This is something else here. Another child is going to be born someday. To us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders. And he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. That is not Maher-shalal-hash-baz. Of the increase of his government and peace, there will be no end. He will reign on David's throne, and over his kingdom, establishing it and upholding it with justice and righteousness from that time on and forever. The zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish it. So there is going to be deliverance. They've been humbled before, they're going to be humbled again, but there will be a deliverance. They are going to see a great light. There's going to come another child who's going to be born someday, not Maher-shalal-hash-baz, but somebody else who's going to take care of their problems. The government will rest on his shoulders, he'll lift the yoke of oppression from their necks, and he will reign from the house of David from that time on and forever. We're going to see this a lot in Isaiah. From beginning to end, all the way through the book, we're going to see this theme of deliverance, future deliverance, judgment and salvation. There's going to be a judgment, but there's going to be a deliverance too. There's going to be a deliverer. This deliverer takes a few different forms in the book. Okay, here we talked about being a child. Later on, we'll also compare it to a child. Then we'll talk about being a servant. Then we'll talk about it being, and that servant itself kind of morphs between Isaiah and the nation of Israel and Cyrus, the pagan king who'll come along later. But they all ultimately point toward the Messiah, the anointed one to come. And that is, so we're turning this is 700 years or so before Christ, and 800 years or so since the law was given to Moses at Sinai. And so we're turning our attention now from the kingdom that is to the kingdom, in Israel's case, the kingdom that has existed now for about 800 years, to the kingdom that's going to exist. This deliverer, this child that will be born someday that will usher in this new glorious kingdom. And that's a theme that we're going to be elaborating on throughout the book of Isaiah and in the prophet books to come. We haven't really talked about that very much yet. Micah mentioned it a little bit. But now we're going to start seeing this theme of this kingdom and this king to come into play.